Hello, everyone. Sorry for the interjection there. It's a shame to disrupt such a buzz in the room. But I'd like to start the next session. So session 3, linking all DRI roles. How do we ensure collaboration across the professions? I am Sophie Janacek, so I'm head of the UKRI Digital Research Infrastructure Programme, and skills is a really important part of our programme, so really pleased to be here for the next couple of days and hear some of the discussions that we have. In terms of the format for this session, it's a chance for you all to have a bit more discussions on the tables and get to know each other. So we have 1 hour. It does what it says on the slide, really, so a brief outline for myself. Then we'll have 10 minutes to add ideas to the discussion boards. And then at 12:15, go back to those boards and discuss the comments that are on the table. There'll be facilitators on each table, and those are noted there in the little kind of teal box. And then we'll return for 10 minutes discussion back in the conference room. And there's no pressure for each table to report back, that type of thing. It's really, if there's anything that you want to report back to the room, then it's your chance to do so. And there are 5 questions there on the right-hand side. I think it's up to your tables, really, as whether you want to address all of these, whether you just want to focus on one, but see how it goes, really. Hopefully that's clear, but the facilitators can help out if you've got any more questions, and we'll kick off, I think. So we'll come. So again, 10 minutes for initial discussion, and then there'll be a more detailed discussion, and then we'll wrap up at 10 to 1. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt again. Just to clarify, there's a Zoom whiteboard for the people online, but for the people in the room, it's the big bit of paper, and you've got post-it notes there as well. Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, everyone. Conscious that we're coming up to lunch, and people are probably keen to get some food. So this is the feedback session. Just a note, so there's no obligation to feedback, you know, if there's nothing you want to report back. And also, I think that this feedback session is going to be recorded, right? So just to note that in terms of what you're considering to feedback to the room. So we have 10 minutes for this, and maybe if I start off with the online session. Sam, do you have anything from that room? Yeah.
And I think, having had a few chats with other people, it'll probably be very similar. But it's really the issue of siling and the lack of crossover of communities. And I think we discussed a few reasons of perhaps why that had happened a little bit. Kind of going back to the history of each of these professions, that we've kind of grown out of an academic silo and not any other kind of bridge to a central team or not. And that's kind of part of the difficulty of that. We definitely felt that we need more events like this, where there's crossover, more funding where there's crossover, and more kind of more highlighting from funders themselves as well of the need for crossover. Kind of leading from that, what that ends up materialising as is when you need another DRI profession, you don't know where they are, you don't know what their title will be, and you don't know what they'll know. And that's quite difficult. And then, as a DRI professional, you then don't know where your boundaries to your own knowledge should be, because you don't know what other people's boundaries are. So I've certainly learned already, having talked to a lot more RDMs and RIAs this time, that actually that isn't part of what should be my expertise. That's your expertise, and it's really good to know that there's someone out there that's got that. So, yeah, that's what we covered.
Thanks very much for that. Sounds like you covered quite a lot of ground in 50 minutes. Does anyone else want to contribute anything from the room? Santiago? Yeah.
Thank you. I think we covered quite a lot in our discussions, but we focused on the barriers. And one of the things is some of the groups are quite specific, and they feel that it's quite difficult to find other people who have the same expertise to really learn from them. And there's also kind of echoing there's RSEs and data engineers and science research, science software engineer and research software engineer, and having like a glossary of these terms and kind of understanding what a role means. And we were kind of discussing whether in some other areas, access to people outside the organization is quite easy. You can see their publications, you can see what their expertise are, and you can contact them. But sometimes under your name, it only says research software engineer, and people don't know that you are actually proficient in a specific thing, so that they can contact you and learn from that. I think that was quite mentioned. And then, sorry. And then obviously the element about funding, understanding how the funding works, so that within the team you can allocate the resources correctly from the grant point of view, because sometimes the way that the grant is and the funding is allocated within the university allows for a data engineer and not a software engineer. And you need to move that around the team where you actually needed a software engineer to do that job. So that was mentioned, and I think that was quite interesting. Yeah, I think that's all from us.
Thanks very much. Anyone else want to feedback? Yes.
Thank you. I think we covered a lot of what has already been said. So the variety of roles, the barriers around discoverability, so who does what, and also the challenge of time management and work pressure, so the time to engage with others is obviously taken out of other things. Maybe one element that we can contribute further on is the importance indeed of these cross roles getting together, and it was interesting across the table there were different ideas, so for more formal, institutional, or if you like senior leaders' ways of contributing to committees, which might sometimes add to the bureaucracy of the institution, but at the same time is the way you find out about new policies and things like that, all the way to the more social and informal getting together. So in the spectrum, there were things like roadshows, frequent roadshows, with kind of a rotating, same material but rotating presenters that maybe are closer to a specific domain or disciplines, to drop in, code reviews. And one interesting, I think, aspect that emerged is the fact that more often than not, to link with other roles, coordinating trainings might be the way to find out about what others are doing. Yeah, but did I miss anything, or if there was anything else you wanted to add? Let me know.
Thank you. Great to hear some sort of quite a lot of positive actions that could be taken in that area as well. And Eamon.
Yeah, thank you. I think as things go on, we'll definitely underscore some of the things. I'll try and add something that hasn't quite been said. We talked a little bit about kind of appetites for risk, and how different appetites for risk amongst the different professions can make things happen or not happen. And sometimes things can bounce around between different organizational units because of a perception that something is risky, or a disagreement about whether something is risky. And a concrete example is around data management and whether we should restrict a data set or whether we should broaden access to that data set. On the short term, it might seem like a really good idea to take the less risk-averse option, or the more risk-averse option, to keep it locked down. But then there's a whole overhead associated with that. And maybe if you were realistic about the risk assessment and not rigid in your application of that, you might take a more rational choice. And a lot of tensions there can kind of be decomposed into different risk appetites. We also talked about discoverability and reachability. The thing that I would sort of graft onto that discussion is different professions have different mechanisms for getting in touch with them. So we talked a bit about how some DRTPs use ticketing systems, other people prefer to be reachable by Teams. Understanding, I guess, what's at stake in some of those systems is kind of quite helpful, and not everyone loves the systems that they live with either, but they also have to live with them, and you have to learn how to live with them as well. So a bit of literacy there and understanding of how those systems work can go a long way, I think, in effective communication. Anything else? No?
Thank you. So lots of we obviously covered lots of the same ground, but one of the things that kind of we started from was the different kind of roles being siloed, but also physically, like even if you're all in person, you might be in different places on campus. And also, the way that we kind of make connections often happens in third places. So like coming here and making connections with somebody at the same institution. And so we were thinking about ways to engineer serendipity. So one thing was like provide as many front doors as possible. So like the different systems having different ways in to the same group. And maybe that involves trying to bring people to you as well as kind of going to them. Perhaps an easy action that we can do is provide food at meetings. So then it's not taking some time out of your workday if it's you're getting lunch and also learning something, perhaps.
Surprising how often cake comes up as a solution to most problems. I think we've probably got time for one more group. Yes, over at the back there, thank you.
Thank you. So we came at it from a little bit of a different side in terms of how we can break those barriers, but also we talk about we lose time from other things that we're doing if we're trying to take the time for communication. But I think the other thing that we can do is upfront allocate time for that level of communication and adding it in. And sometimes it means extra meetings or extra seminars. But trying to improve and create a culture where having that communication is kind of the base start point. And one of the ways we talked about was sharing and celebrating achievements and progress outside of the team, because to some people, an upgrade of the access management system may seem completely irrelevant. However, down the line, if they need to talk to someone about access management, they might remember that, and so they might know what your team actually does, even though you've not necessarily had the level of communication or not had the time to do that.
Thank you. So we're at 8 seconds past 1, so thank you, last speaker, for keeping us to time. I think with that we'll go to lunch, and we're expected back at 2 o'clock for the next session. Thanks.